This was the last of my wine, so I need to pace myself. Oh, that's good, though. So, this is going to be a week where I have a specific topic in mind. It may not be the only thing that I talk about, but it is definitely the first thing that I'm going to end up focusing on once we are a little ways into the stream, and I am confident that most of the people who are going to show up are currently here. Apparently, it turns out, I'm finding out because of the chat, that Anthony Gramuglia has has a stream that just started on, well, not the exact same topic. He's focusing on the reactions of right-wing grifters, which, I mean, that's kind of his specialty, so that makes sense. It is pretty funny, though. So, yeah, we are going to talk about... we're going to talk about Paramount acquiring Warner Brothers. Oh, God. Oh, God. Okay. For people who didn't see the stream that I did a few months ago talking about this when it looked like it was going to go to Netflix, that was the better option. I am going to reiterate something that I said in that stream, and I want to be sure everyone's on board with me now. Nobody should be allowed to buy Warner Brothers. None of the people who have put in a bid and were trying to get in on this should be allowed to buy Warner Brothers. This level of corporate consolidation, of monopolization, none of it's good. Nobody should be allowed to buy the thing outright. That having been said, Netflix was by far the better option out of them and Paramount. Yes, I know, I think it was Viacom also put in a bid, but they were never actually in serious contention. I might have been, I forget who the third party was. They were never seriously in. Might have been Comcast, because I think Viacom actually got absorbed by Paramount. I've been looking at too many corporate consolidation documents today, so my brain is mildly scrambled in trying to prep for this damn thing. But regardless, it was always between Netflix and between them and Paramount, and it really looked like Netflix was going to take it for I was going to say a lot of reasons. Ultimately, it boils down to one. Netflix could just afford to buy Warner Brothers, which meant their offer was a hell of a lot more stable, whereas Paramount Skydance, if we're being more accurate, couldn't afford it, and therefore it was a much more precarious offer by virtue of how many other sources of funding they were having to tap into. Now, that situation has not changed, but Paramount just kept upping the cash over and over and over and over again, offering more and more money. Still money with a questionable amount of stability, but just upping the amount so much that eventually Netflix, which is, to be blunt about it, and I don't mean this to be an over praise of Netflix, screw Netflix too, but again, they were the better option. Netflix is a lot more cautious and careful with their money. Because, like, let's be real clear. Do not forget that Skydance closed its deal taking control of Paramount like 2 years ago now. It might honestly have just been last year. I can't even remember. But it was really recent. The idea of them merging again immediately after their last merger is insane. It is absurd. That from any business perspective, you haven't even had your finances settled from the last time you did this, and you're going to do this stuff again. Netflix bowed out because they felt Warner Brothers was worth money. And honestly, they could probably still, even now, have afforded to outbid Paramount for this. It wasn't a question of what they could or couldn't afford. The issue was that they hit their limit for, like, okay, you're trying to force us into a higher bid to a degree where we're not as confident and comfortable with this deal as we were. So that's why they walked away. just because, again, they're a lot more cautious. Paramount was the reckless bidder bidding upwards against whoever the hell they were against, whereas Netflix was going, okay, you're clearly out of your mind and we're done. So, okay. Not super aware of what the repercussions of this will be. Okay, so like what the repercussions will be is hard to get overly specific about. And honestly, anybody, whether they think this is a good thing or a bad thing, is playing a foolish game by getting overly detailed and overly specific with what it is they think will happen as a result of this. I'm going to give you some general things that are very, very, very likely going to happen. But anyone who's like citing, oh, this is definitely what's going to happen, and they're like getting to granular level of like franchise management, they are very likely talking out of their ass. I'm not saying that I'm not going to talk about some of that, but I am still going to talk about it in general terms because that's all we've got right now. So, Paramount Skydance wins the Warner Brothers bid and Netflix walks away and its shares jump. It's actually interesting to note that the winning company was having a hit to their stock price, regardless of which one it was. When it was Netflix looking like they were going to win the bid, they took a hit to their stock price. Now that Paramount looks like they're going to win, their stock price is taking a hit because investors don't think this is a great idea, for the most part. Or at the very least, not all of them do. And enough of them don't think it's a good idea that the price was dropped down, and then once Netflix was no longer in a bidding war, it jumped back up again. So, reminder, Skydance, which now owns Paramount, is owned by David Ellison. David Ellison is a billionaire and the son of Larry Ellison, who is a tech billionaire, and so he's got a lot of fingers on a lot of pies. The overriding amount of his wealth comes from his ownership of Oracle. Oracle is, like most massive tech companies, a bad thing. But in terms of like direct stuff that you would probably know day to day, they were the ones who got to take over TikTok in the US when it was forced to be sold away from ByteDance, the Chinese company who had been running it previously. Funnily enough, TikTok has had either 2 or 3 now major outages on the platform because of how less stable Oracle's servers are. So, okay. So, let me see what I've got pulled up so we can start really getting into the... they're already talking about combining Paramount Plus and HBO Max. Like, this is just them trying to pitch what they are doing as a good idea. And this is not me saying that they won't do that, but like, they are so early in the process that this doesn't even really matter. Sorry, I'm losing track of what tabs I had. All right. So, okay, let's talk about the money for a minute, because the amount of money that Paramount is paying for Warner Brothers is, I believe it's either 110 or 111. So it's either 110 billion or 111 billion. There is already a big reason that number should be concerning, at the very least, to investors, which is that it exceeds the market cap valuation of Paramount by a lot. Now, okay, I'm going to be getting into a certain amount of business and investment terminology, which I kind of understand, but don't necessarily know the best way to explain. But the market cap value is basically like, what is the most that the like if it at its current maximum value, like on its best stock day or whatever, what is the current high that this thing is worth? And anyone who actually knows this stuff better is probably going to tell me that I have not explained that properly. But exactly what it is going to matter less than the dollar amount involved, because the current market cap of Skydance is, where is it? It is a little under 15 billion. They are paying 111 billion to acquire Warner Brothers. Now, Netflix's market cap, in case you were wondering, is 412 billion. Now, there is little doubt that Netflix would have taken out loans and would have gone into some amount of debt to acquire Warner Brothers, just because they have a market cap that meant they could basically just afford to buy Warner Brothers outright. They would have had to liquidate some amount of assets in order to do that, so they probably never would have. But Netflix being worth so much more, and significantly more than what they were offering, meant they could have gotten a loan to cover that pretty easily. It was a very safe thing for financiers and banks and whatever to back. Paramount, that is not the case. And this was honestly probably a big reason why they went with Netflix in the first place. So, trying to think how much in the weeds I want to get for where the money's coming from. Would you consider Paramount constant pushing to buy Warner Brothers harassment? Like, it seems like Netflix was sealed for a bit, yet Paramount kept pushing and pushing and pushing. I mean, I'm not going to call it harassment, Timmy, because they're not people. I know they want us to treat us like they're people. They're not people. Like, yeah, you're right. Paramount would not shut the fuck up. But as a business, it's their right to keep making offers. Ultimately, this is not a hostile takeover, which was what they were trying to do, and it failed. That's actually worth mentioning. Last time I talked about this, they were gearing up to attempt a hostile takeover, which would have involved acquiring enough stock from the actual shareholders to get a majority share and override what the board of Warner Brothers would or wouldn't allow. That didn't work. They didn't even come close to acquiring the amount of stock that they would have needed for a hostile takeover. That's why they had to keep raising the bid over and over and over again to now this absurd number. So, where did the extra money come from? Because they are paying like 8 times what the entire valuation of Skydance Paramount even is in order to acquire Warner Brothers. So, the money's coming from a few places. There are some banks that are backing a portion of this. There is some money coming from the Middle East, particularly Saudi Arabia. However, a very significant portion of the money is coming, hang on, let me get it up, from Larry Ellison. Now, Larry Ellison is David Ellison's father. He's the one who owns, he doesn't own Oracle. Technically, he's the largest shareholder. He effectively owns Oracle. So, he's putting up a very significant portion of this money. And it's money that he doesn't have in liquid capital. But he had been permitted prior to this, I don't know how long ago, but he had been permitted to basically set aside a certain amount of Oracle shares that he could basically do what he wanted with them for his own personal finances. And he's probably pulling from that pool, which he needs, because if he didn't have that, he'd probably have to actually start selling Oracle shares, which would risk tanking that stock and causing a sell-off, because it would lead to the to the belief from shareholders that, oh, they're going to trash their existing portfolio in order to acquire Warner Brothers. He doesn't have to do that, but the fact that that David Ellison basically had to go to his daddy and go, "Daddy, I want to buy Warner Brothers," and have his father pony up almost half of the money for this because it's such a bad idea. And like, forget the overall implications we're going to get into. Just from a business perspective, it's such a bad idea, and it is such a massive, excessive reach of Paramount Skydance's means that they couldn't get enough bankers and investors to finance what they had to pay to get it. Now, how bad of an idea is this? Well, oh boy, let me find this thing. That's not the one. That's not the one. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? This is the one. I don't have this full article because Bloomberg are assholes and they charge you. But I was able to read just enough of this and then look other stuff up to get what I needed to know. So, Paramount's outstanding debt has been downgraded in the investment market. They had been, and again, I'm going to be getting into stockholder and investment jargon, so bear with me. So, they had been rated as, I believe it was triple B. I think that was it. Hang on. Yes, they had been rated at triple B minus, and they've been downgraded to double B plus. If you don't know how the rating system, and this is, to be clear, by just one rating institution. This is Fitch ratings. So this is like this is like one. If you had one of the three credit monitoring companies in the U.S. downgrade your credit rating, but the other two didn't, like, that's what it's like. It's not like a definitive fact. I mean, it's money. It's all made up. But one of the ratings agencies has downgraded them from triple B minus to double B plus. Now, if you don't know the way that these ratings go, triple A is the best, then double A, then single A, then triple B, double B, single B. And within those, you have plus, neutral, and minus for each of them. So triple B minus, which is what Paramount was rated at, that was the lowest rating you could get and be considered a investment. It's the lowest rating to be considered an investment. Downgrading to double B plus means that their debt is now rated as a junk bond. Quickest way I can do that. A junk, like an investment bond, is something that has a high expectation to give you gradual returns. A junk bond is way less stable. However, since it is less stable, it also has a higher upper end. Like, it fluctuates a lot more, which might theoretically mean it fluctuates up so highly is way better for you. But they're called junk bonds because they're unstable. So Paramount's entire outstanding debt, which is now ballooned. So first of all, their shares overall dropped by 8%. And at least as of earlier today. And the rating for their outstanding debt is now considered junk. Now, not like literal junk, but a junk bond. It is not a safe thing to invest in the debt because it is becoming increasingly unlikely that they are going to be able to pay back their creditors. Not impossible, but increasingly unlikely that they are going to be able to afford to even pay back the debt that they are accumulating. So this is before we get into any bigger implications of what all of this could mean. Just from a business standpoint, from just running a business, this is a really stupid idea. This, like, again, it's interesting to contrast it between Netflix and Paramount Skydance, because Netflix wanted Warner Brothers because they believed it was a sound business investment. Skydance Paramount wanted Warner Brothers because David Ellison is a giant fucking baby and he wanted a new toy. And you can see that in the recklessness with which this entire purchase has been made. So the entire thing, like, again, taking it as a given, neither of these companies should be allowed to buy Warner Brothers. They're going to be. And neither of them owning them is a good thing. Netflix would have been a better thing. But and even just setting aside all the other stuff I'm about to get into, just as a business proposition, this is a terrible idea. And it just shows how, I'll be generous and say, foolish. How foolish the Ellisons are that they are doing this. So, let's see. I'm going to take a pause for a drink and look at the chat. Worst part for Paramount is their debt is expected to increase by the end of the year, since the film slate is probably the worst it's been in years, so analysts expect their ranks to drop more. Yeah, there's that too. But anyways, yeah. Look, billionaires are a terrible thing, but there are some that are worse than others. Like, there is no such thing as an ethical billionaire. The existence of a billionaire is innately immoral and should not be allowed to exist. That having been said, there is still a difference between Elon Musk and Warren Buffett. There's still a difference between the fucking Ellisons and Ted Sarandos, who heads up Netflix. There is a notable difference between these people, even though they all suck. So, what will it mean? Well, first of all, I am taking it as a given that this is going to clear regulation. Oh, although it's worth adding. Paramount is assuming a lot more liability over that as well, because they had to agree to, I think it was a $47 billion payout to Warner Brothers if this gets stopped in regulation. If the regulators don't clear this merger, Paramount will still owe Warner Brothers 4 times more than they are worth as a company. 4 times more than Paramount is worth. They will owe to Warner Brothers as a compensation payout if the regulators don't sign off on this. That having been said, regulators will sign off on this. Regulators have not meaningfully stopped mergers that shouldn't be allowed to happen in decades. Like, Microsoft shouldn't have been allowed to acquire Activision. That fucking happened. Normally I censor myself and I don't swear on stream. I am going to be swearing on stream if you hadn't already gathered. I'll try not to do it in excess, but it is going to happen. So in addition to that, what they already have to pay, and I think already have paid, is I believe it's about a $3 billion termination fee to Netflix, because by disrupting that deal, they already had to pay out directly to Netflix just to even have the option to buy this thing. And again, Paramount Skydance is only worth about $14 billion. And this is the money being thrown around. I think the least dangerous kind of billionaire are the ones who don't have much public profile and just care about money. I mean, I will agree, only insofar as grading on a curve. They are not undangerous. They are less dangerous. But that's no. Billionaires should not exist. There should be a maximum wage. There should be a certain amount of money that no human being on the face of the planet should be allowed to make in a year. Anyways, I'm a bit of an optimist. You might call it idiot, but I'm thinking, maybe we get a DC Star Trek crossover. Okay, not to be an asshole about it. I'm not going to call you an idiot. I am going to call you incredibly naive. Like, might that happen? Yes. Is that going to be worth everything else that's going to happen? No. Okay, so let's start talking about what that means. So, first things first. I really hope, because they haven't yet, I really hope I start seeing a bunch of filmmakers and other, high and mighty types within Hollywood bitching and saying that this shouldn't happen. Because they did it about Netflix. And I bet you, most of the ones who are like, Netflix shouldn't be allowed to buy Warner Brothers are not a damn thing about this, even though it's worse. And it was for strictly the reason they were like, there'll be fewer movies in cinemas. Grow up. So I talked about that last time, so I don't want to get too hung up on it. But there was so much rallying within the industry against Netflix because there was the perception that Netflix would completely fold in Warner Brothers and not continue to use them for theatrical distribution, which Netflix said was not its plan. They indicated that it was their intention to basically acquire a theatrical arm rather than ever having to build one of their own. And yeah, if they felt it wasn't worth it, is it possible that later on down the road they would fold it into just streaming? Yeah, that was possible, but that wasn't the initial plan. Now, does that mean they wouldn't do it? No. Should you trust anything they say? Absolutely fucking not. But if anybody is looking at, well, David Ellison said they're going to put out 30 movies into theaters a year. Bullshit. Paramount has had garbage years lately. And even Warner Brothers on its best, combining those two, 30 would still be more than what is released on an average year by those two combined. I talked about that last time. So they are talking, he is saying that like, oh, we're going to increase the number of movies sent to theaters every year. No, you're not. No, you're not. You know what you're going to do? First thing you're going to do, you're going to lay off a ton of people. Which already happened after Skydance acquired Paramount. They laid off, I think by the time we got into December, this past December, they laid off 2,000 people. It is one of the first things that happens in a big debt-heavy acquisition. You restructure and fire a crap ton of people because suddenly you have amassed this massive amount of debt. You got to start cutting expenses. Was it working fine before you bought it? Yeah, maybe. Doesn't matter. Stuff's got to go. So there is going to be a ridiculously high number of layoffs. It's going to be in the thousands. I guarantee it. So that is going to happen. Then there is just going to be so again, I don't want to overpraise Warner Brothers. But you know what we're not going to get anymore under an acquisition by Paramount? We're never going to get something like Sinners again. Sinners, I think people really need to understand how meaningful Sinners was as a film. Not just in terms of its success, in terms of what it was, but in terms of the deal under which it was made, and that it was Warner Brothers in many ways trying to course correct. Because Warner Brothers used to be the home of really talented directors being given the means to take big swings. But when Warner Brothers pivoted to focusing on, initially, when they did their first initial pivot, to focus on the Snyderverse DC movies, the Harry Potter movies, and the Lego movies. They basically helped kill the mid-budget movie, which was where really talented filmmakers like Christopher Nolan, like honestly Zack Snyder before they started making him do nothing but DC stuff for a bit, they were able to just get funding of 30 to maybe $100 million to make their personal pet projects. Warner Brothers was the place where you could do that. That stopped being the case about a decade ago. But Sinners was a move towards them trying to become that again. Because Sinners was an original pitch from a, yes, established and talented director, but he's not working on a known IP. He's working in a genre he hasn't actually made before. And he had the deal with Warner Brothers that the rights to the film would revert to him after, I think it's 25 or 30 years. It's one of the two, which is almost unheard of. They were working to rebuild it as a place where talented directors and talented storytellers could come in and make their passion projects. And that is not going to happen under Paramount Skydance. And it's not even just a matter of like philosophically. Because Paramount's never been known as a place for auteurs to go, even before David Ellison got his greasy little spoiled rich fingers all over the damn thing. But it was never known as that. And there is going to be no way that they allow for this kind of stuff because, again, along with the layoffs, they are going to have to do the exact thing that Warner Brothers did and failed at repeatedly, which is to focus only on the biggest tent poles, only on the biggest things. So just as Warner Brothers was starting to work towards rebuilding itself as a studio where you could get something like Sinners, that's all just going to go away. They are going to only make the stuff with the big names. And I can tell you what it's going to be. It's going to be the Harry Potter shit. It's going to be the DC related stuff. It is going to be Godzilla related stuff. And then like maybe one or two slightly smaller franchises along with that. But basically anything that isn't already a franchise is never going to get financed. Again, not anything that requires a budget. Like maybe they'll throw a bone every now and then for like a $10 million film. But again, for something like Sinners, which I think had an $80 million budget, like allowing just a really talented creator that kind of money to play with, they're never going to do it again. Ever again. And the thing is, a lot of people are going to make predictions about the direction that these franchises will go in. And that is harder to predict because, unfortunately, because the acquisition of Paramount by Skydance is so goddamn recent, we actually don't even really know what the impact on Paramount properties is yet. Because Paramount is still releasing the stuff that was already in the works when that deal closed. So we don't really know yet what it looks like when Larry Ellison has direct influence over, say, Star Trek. There's plenty of reason to worry about that, but we don't really know what that looks like. So, yeah, I'm gonna get to that. So, hang on. I had a super chat somewhere in here. Where'd it go? There it is. Supreme Omega, thank you very much for the super chat. I appreciate it. Little gay heart of appreciation. On eras that was seen as the end of cinema, the Hays Code, the rise of TV, the end of the old studio system. Is this era the worst and damaging? I mean, we've been in the streaming era for a while, and I feel like we're about to start heading into something else, and I don't know what it is, and I'm not looking forward to it. Anyways, I need to hop over to the Discord real quick, and see whatever questions were asked there. I'm going to burn through them as fast as I can because I still got other stuff to talk about. But let's see. Wondering why this recent news is treated by you and other YouTubers as a big deal, despite it being yet another merger that will ruin whatever studio it's merged with. That's kind of what I've been talking about for the last half hour, so I'm not going to address that specifically. Will this mean that Paramount will own DC Comics as well? Yes! Yes, it will. They will own everything DC. They will own the comics, they will own any DC TV adaptations, and they will own the films. Would Warner Brothers Discovery have to spin off CNN to a third party? Nope. No, they wouldn't. The only reason why that was going to happen under Netflix was because Netflix didn't want CNN. They didn't want that. Now, the thing is, there was suspicion for a little bit that maybe Paramount would just swoop in to buy CNN and let Netflix have the rest of Warner Brothers. Clearly, that didn't happen because, again, David Ellison wants his toy and Daddy bought it for him. So, again, completely irrational from a business logic. But if all they wanted was CNN, they probably could have just gotten it. But they didn't want just CNN. David Ellison wanted the whole thing. But yeah, CNN is a big, big problem because one of the things that we have seen direct impact on, because I said, like, we don't really know yet to what degree David Ellison or any dipshit he puts in charge of the thing is going to have on, say, Star Trek, because the Star Trek stuff that we're still currently getting, including, say, Starfleet Academy, was greenlit and went into production before the merger was finalized. So we don't know what that looks like yet. We do know what the Ellisons do when they have control over news, because we see what has been happening to CBS News. We see what's been happening to 60 Minutes. Watery, middle of the road, toothless, and censored. So that's going to be CNN. Now, there are people who will hold up the fear that it's going to be turned into a next Fox News. It's not. It's going to be turned into something that has no point of view, because any news outlet has a point of view. Even the ones that try and stay in the middle, they have a point of view. They are going to turn it into something that has zero point of view, or at least as close to zero point of view as they possibly can, because they don't want to rock the boat. That's what it'll be. If you're worried about, say, like John Oliver and Last Week Tonight getting immediately canned, I doubt it. Because yes, they did can Stephen Colbert, but they've allowed The Daily Show to continue to exist. I think that they're probably looking at Colbert burning them every single night until he's officially off the air, and seeing the general response to that and going, okay, I'm not sure it's worth doing again. Now, does that mean, say, John Oliver or The Daily Show are safe? No, they probably got pressures on them, and I do not doubt that Last Week Tonight in particular is going to start having a hell of a lot more network notes than they used to. What will this mean for the DC cinematic universe? Probably nothing. I say probably because here's the asterisk on that. So, given that a bunch of that stuff is already in the works, and some of it's already out, there's two things to take into account. On the one hand, when a new regime takes something over, there is just a general tendency to shit can whatever was greenlit by the previous regime so that you can do your own thing and claim the credit. Because if you have success that comes from what was done under the old regime, you don't really get to take credit for that. Which matters to business jackasses for some goddamn reason. But on the other hand, this is the current DCU is such a massive undertaking that I think there's a good chance that they're just going to let it ride, because the financial perspective, and remember, they're going to be kind of financially cooked for a while. The financial perspective of scrapping what James Gunn has already done and starting from scratch a third goddamn time to the potential complete exhaustion of audiences I don't think very highly of the intelligence of billionaires, but I do think they have a certain amount of cleverness when it comes to realizing that something is going to screw them over. They will still do things that will screw themselves over financially. Just look at this purchase in general. But I think that it is early enough in the process of this that unless it starts faltering, they're probably just going to let it ride. Now, if like Supergirl tanks, or I guess the Clayface movie or whatever it is, if like both of those tanks, yeah, that might be it. But that might have been the case anyways. Who knows? Would CNN have ended up in far-right wing media oligarchs' hands regardless since Netflix wasn't really interested in news? Again, it might have. It's hard to know where CNN would have ended up. Do you think far-right wing media oligarchs plan to use their control to make popular franchises overtly right-wing or just kind of neutral or ineffective? The second one. Like, again, MAGA influencers want something like, say, Star Trek to go full-on anti-woke. They're never going to get that because what these people are going to try and do is make it apolitical, which means it will be toothless and shit. But they do think, or at least they're going to try to think that they can thread the needle to bring the right-wingers back on board by just being neutral, which they can't because that's not what the right-wingers want. So they're never going to win that audience back meaningfully. And all they're going to do is lose the people who thought that something like Star Trek, being very leftist in a lot of its messaging, was a good thing. Seeing that taper off, even if it isn't replaced by outright right-wing messages, just seeing the left leanings tapered off is gonna lose a lot of people. It just is. But yeah, that's what they're gonna try and do. They're gonna try and find the middle road and make they're gonna make bland porridge is what they're gonna make. They're not necessarily gonna make shit, but they're gonna make bland filler garbage. In a recent Battlestar Galactica episode, you covered the scene where Rosalind is looking for something in Baltar's cell, and before he gives in and just gives her what she wants, she's about to subject him to a strip search with her watching. How would you have felt about the scene if Adama treated a female prisoner or antagonist like that? I don't know, man. I suck at hypotheticals. If it happens, I'll deal with it. Otherwise, I can't wrap my head through that. All right, we got another super chat in. The Baba Duchess. I'm not even completely joking when I say the next step is probably one streaming platform for everything, and they essentially reinvent cable. They already reinvented cable. We are living in the reinvention of cable. Because what was the heart of cable? Cable was, oh, well, buy this and you get this bundled with it. Oh, and you get this patch of things. Well, can I just have just the thing I want? Nope, you get all this other stuff with it. They're bundling Hulu with Disney. They're bundling these things together. They've got it carved up into the little fiefdoms, and you have to pay for all of it individually or get bundles and a bunch of stuff you don't want. It's already cable again. Will James Gunn abandon the DCU given Paramount Skydance's desire to merge with Warner Brothers Discovery? I doubt it. I don't think so. Unless they appoint somebody like flat out right wing and understand, yes, the Ellisons by their nature as billionaires are right wing. They are. And they're definitely cozying up to Trump, but so is fucking everybody. Virtually every billionaire in existence is cozying up to Trump. People like James Gunn who work in this industry are frankly used to working under owners that they don't like. I can't imagine James Gunn thought very highly of Bob Iger even before he fired him. So I would be surprised if he abandoned the DCU over this. Is it impossible? No. James Gunn is also at a point in his life where he doesn't have that many fucks left to give, but I can't imagine that he'd feel like he'd it would be worth whatever statement he was making by doing that. We literally have a Disney Plus button on our remote. Yeah. Yeah. As a physical media fan, I'm worried about the future of Warner Brothers Archive collection. Warner Brothers already sucks at physical media, has for a while. Right now, there is none of these companies are good with physical media. None of them. Now, if you're worried about that specific collection, I get that. But at the same time, for me, I'm just shrugging my shoulders, going, they already suck at physical media. They all suck at physical media because they don't actually want you to own anything. They want to rent it to you forever. The other day, Steve Shive suggested that good Star Trek writers will be able to put progressive messages in the show that will go over the heads of people like the Ellisons. Think that's true? Possibly. Like, the benefit of Star Trek, like, first of all, again, I don't think the Ellisons... The Ellisons are right-wing leaning shitheads. They are not as politically motivated as, say, Elon Musk is. Like, are they ingratiating themselves to Trump? Yes. Do they prefer the right wing? Yes, of course. It benefits them financially, but they're not brain rotted to the degree that somebody like Musk is. So could you insert stuff that could go over their heads? Yeah, potentially. Especially with something like Star Trek, where a lot of it's allegorical. It's probably actually harder to get away with anything where there's a clear one-to-one. Like, you do a realistic setting in modern day America, and yeah, you're actually going to have to use terms like ICE and DEI and stuff like that. But whereas if you have it set in the far-flung whatever frickin' century Star Trek stuff is currently being set in, you can use all kind of allegories. Now, do I think it'll completely go over their heads and that'll be like, oh, it'll be good because of that? No. Like, I like Steve. He's a nice guy. I think that's slightly foolishly optimistic way of viewing it because, and again, these guys don't actually care about political messaging. They don't. They just want people to consume and shut up, which is why the right wing gets kowtowed to a lot right now, because they don't shut up. So what these people want is for the rest of us to shut up and consume. Stop complaining, just buy. And so they continue to try and find the magic formula that will get as many of us as possible to stop complaining and just buy. And that's not how people work, but they keep trying regardless. Last year, Warner Brother Archive had a banger year in terms of animation releases. Again, look, James, for that specific aspect of Warner Brothers, sure, maybe that's been fine, but I still can't buy the second 2 seasons of Infinity Train. You know, there's still a ton of stuff that you can't get in physical media. I'm not sure Warner Brothers is the worst, but they're not good. Jesse also said Star Trek might start doing more allegories, but she said it would be a cowardly step backward. Potentially, it would depend on the specifics. I'm gonna kind of split the difference on that and say they'll probably do more allegorical stuff, which, if done intelligently, doesn't have to be cowardly, but could well end up being. The bigger problem with the Ellisons being in charge is stuff like them greenlighting Rush Hour 4 because Trump owed a favor to Ratner, not really the theme, not really the themes and the shit they produced. Yeah, I mean, like, the Ellisons just want whoever can make their lives easier to be on their side. That's why they cozy up to Trump, because Trump has the ability to make their lives more difficult if he feels slighted. And that's the thing. There's a lot of people who say, and like, don't get me wrong, there are some people who are stupid enough to think if they cozy up to Trump, they'll somehow be rewarded for that. I think a lot of his political sycophants are like that. But I think when it comes to the business people, like the Ellisons, particularly Larry, because while I have nothing truly positive to say about that guy, I think he's a lot smarter than his son is. Particularly when it comes to Larry Ellison, don't I think it's just a matter. I don't think he has any illusions that doing stuff like greenlighting Rush Hour 4 because Trump likes Ratner and said you should make another one. I don't think Larry Ellison is under any illusions that doing that will make things better for them later. I think he fully realizes that doing that just means that he's not making their life a hell right now. Because Trump is a petty, vindictive man who holds massive grudges and loves to screw over whoever he can. Hell, you can look at what's going on with frickin' Anthropic and OpenAI right now, which is a whole other mess that I don't even have the time to get into. Short version, Anthropic had a bunch of AI tools being used at the government level, but they refused to give ground when they said, we will not let you use our tech for bombing drones or mass surveillance. And that pissed Trump off. And he said, fine, get rid of it. So all of Anthropic's stuff is not only no longer being used, I forget the actual label, but Pete Hegseth labeled it something that means that if anybody employed by the government is using this stuff at all, it is like you can't touch it. And OpenAI has swooped in to try and fill the void, except now Sam Altman is fully cracking under the pressure because he's like, oh, we're going to have to agree to all the stuff that Anthropic said they wouldn't do, and we don't actually want them to do that either. So, like, it's all a mess. Trying to keep Trump from fucking up your day is like dealing with the most spoiled, tantrumy toddler in the world. Doing everything right and making him happy now doesn't mean shit if 2 minutes from now you do something that pisses him off. And again, I think Larry Ellison gets that. I think David Ellison might be stupid enough to not get that. You forgot that Paramount has basically announced they are going to only do testosterone-fueled action movies. No, I haven't forgotten. But also, like, the thing is, Paramount doesn't... the one and only aspect by which, from a business standpoint, the acquisition of Warner Brothers is a good idea is they have a lot more bankable properties than Paramount has. Paramount doesn't have much. Paramount has Transformers, which is floundering right now. Star Trek, which it's debatable how well that's doing, but that's not a viable film franchise at the very least right now. That's kind of it. Wait, is Fast and Furious them? Hang on. No, Fast and Furious is Universal. Nope, that's not them either. Hang on. Franchise is owned by Paramount. Mission Impossible, that is probably done. Ninja Turtles, that's, yeah, SpongeBob. Yeah, they, like them going, we're going to make nothing but, action movies. Like, okay, like that was, that was a decent chunk of what you were already doing, at least with your films. And anyway, the point that I was saying is, like, one of the few arguments that you can make is why this is a good purchase for them is that Warner Brothers has a way more varied portfolio than Paramount does. Feels like everything going on in the world is we're headed to a headlong collision towards World War III. I don't know. I am inclined at this point to one of two theories. They're both depressing, and I don't honestly believe either of them, but they are kind of where my head's at right now. Either, and this is the nicer one, either the passing of David Bowie in 2016 completely unbalanced the world, and it's just been spiraling ever since, or we all died in 2020 and we live in hell. So you say Top Gun The Hidden, but like, yes, Top Gun Maverick was a massive success. Are they going to be able to squeeze another one out of that? Maybe. One. Like, the problem with Top Gun is the exact same problem with Mission Impossible. It is a specific star-driven franchise. You can't... Tom Cruise might actually retire at some point. Do I think there's any way this doesn't happen? I think the only way this doesn't happen is if Larry Ellison's portion of the funding for this somehow collapses. Like, if for some reason, and I don't know what would cause this, but if for some reason Oracle's stock takes a complete nosedive, that would impact his personal wealth to the point that he could not pay the portion of this buyout that he is committed to. And I think if that happened, the rest would not step up to cover it. Everybody else would just walk away. That's the only way I see this not happening. I don't think regulators are going to stop it. And it would, like, if the only way this doesn't happen is if the internal finances collapse. And I'm singling out Larry Ellison because he is the biggest portion of it. He is the largest single percentage contributor to it. So if in theory, if one of the banks backed out, or if the Saudis backed out, they might find somebody else to cover that portion, or they might be able to squeeze enough out of who's left to cover it. But if Larry Ellison's portion deflates, the whole thing will collapse. And it might collapse if one of the others bounces, or if two of them bounce. But like, that's the thing. Unless the financial machinations between these people collapse, this is happening. And to be clear, they might. It's not the biggest chance in the world, but they might. That's why there was that ratings downgrade on Paramount's debt. That's why it was downgraded from triple B minus to double B plus. Because it's less stable. It might all fall apart. I'm not counting on that. Is it possible? Yeah, it is. So I suppose if you're going to cross your fingers for anything, cross your fingers for that the finances fall apart. That's about all we've got. Yeah, I know, James, that California says they're going to try and block this merger. They're not. Like, they will cause it to take longer. It'll be the exact same thing that happened with Microsoft's acquisition of Activision. That, state of California will do enough diligence to slow the process, but they're going to let it go forward. Of course they are. Of course they freaking are. But we still have dogs. What I'm hearing is we need an army of Etsy witches to hex Oracle stock. You got to do better than Etsy. Etsy is flooded with AI garbage nonsense now. We need a better source of witchery than Etsy at this point. That said, I will happily get out my cauldron and light some things on fire. So anyone else who wants to join me, go for it. I think we are going to wrap it up there, unless anybody else had any other questions. I didn't know if I was going to get around to talking about anything else, but obviously this is just, oh, what a goddamn nightmare. This is the worst. This is the worst. Was that joke too dark? It was too dark for me to want to repeat. How about that, 255? It wasn't too dark to make. It was dark enough that I didn't want to repeat it. I'll become a regular witch, but I'm scared of ghosts. You don't have to mess with ghosts to be a witch. There are many kinds of witch. Look into green witchery. Look into kitchen witchery. Kitchen witchcraft is a wonderful, soul-warming thing. Bless the kitchen witches. Like, legitimately, if you are curious about witchcraft, look into it. There are many different kinds of witchcraft. There are green witches. There are kitchen witches. There are sex witches. There are hedge witches. There's a lot to be done. And if it's something that brings you peace and centering and calm, go for it. Absolutely. But they might come anyway, but they might come regardless. So to be fair, I'm not scared of ghosts. I live in a 200-year-old house in Vermont. My garage is already haunted. Like if you live in old towns in Vermont, in New England at all, you're used to ghosts. I don't think much of them at this point. Like, don't be rude, and they won't mess you up. Exactly, context. Like, make friends with your ghosts. Like the ghost in the garage didn't used to like me. She's chilled a lot. Although, honestly, that might be because I transitioned, because she seemed to have issues with men specifically, and she's chilled a lot since I transitioned. So that honestly might be it. My house is 500 years old, Old England. That doesn't necessarily guarantee like, part of the reason why New England houses are as haunted as they are is because they're not only old, but they were home to some real violent nonsense. I'm not sure if that is as consistently true with Old English houses. Oh, well. Ghosts fall squarely into the necromancer category. They do if you're trying to actually channel them for something. Just like touching bases? No, that doesn't need to be a necromancer stuff. Vera, I would have guessed you could have a squirrel in your garage instead. No, there was it was a groundhog underneath it for a while. Then a skunk moved in there. I think that's gone though. Anyways, what if the Canada government stalled this merger out until the midterm elections, and when Democrats take back the House, hopefully? Democrats won't stop this. Well, I need to stop and wrap things up, but like, let's be really clear. The Democrats will not stop this any more than Trump and his cronies will. Obama wasn't stopping mergers. Biden wasn't stopping mergers. They don't care. Like, Democrats being in power are generally less corrupt, so there's less of a direct throw money at Trump's, pet projects to make him happy and clap like a seal for 5 seconds so he leaves you alone. Like, that system will go away, but like, they're still going to let it through. We haven't had meaningful corporate consolidation or monopoly prevention, regulation, enforcement in this country in 20 goddamn years. No, there's a reason why I did not list the Democrats succeeding in the midterms as something that would cause this to fall apart, because it won't. It won't. They don't care. The Democrats are liberals. And I mean that in the sense that liberals are a capitalist-based political platform. Fundamentally, while they will disagree on a lot of stuff with the right, and they are on the better side of a lot of things versus the right, they ultimately want to uphold capitalism and support business in the exact same goddamn ways. So, when does the actual merger happen? We don't know, Vanessa, because it has to clear regulations in the U.S., in Europe. And Europe has already signaled they're going to let it through, although they'll probably put it through its paces. Like this, the midterms were probably going to happen before this is finalized, regardless of anything, just because of how long, even if the regulations don't massively hold it up, it's just a long process regardless. 20 years, double that. Neoliberals are still conservative. No, I agree, context, but I'm saying 20 years because I am old enough to remember when they, when there was the forcible breakup of, I think it was, well, Microsoft was broken up, and then I think Verizon. And those were the 90s. And all of which reconsolidated later. So, like, I say 20 years because I remember some degree of actual consolidation regulation happening in the 90s and the very early 2000s. Like, was it enough? No, but I remember there being some. Anyways. Thank you, campaign finance reform. Anybody running gets a set budget of a handful of $1,000, no other money allowed. There you go, campaign finance reform. I fixed it. Baby, I remember when they hit AT&T. Oh, back in the day. Back in the day. Anyways, thank you all for joining me. This is a nightmare, and we're all screwed. Take care of yourselves. There we go. I'm okay. Be well, be safe, be kind. Please remember that you are beautiful, you are valid, and you are loved. You are the council. I am just running the meetings. And until next time, this council is adjourned. McCavity!